Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Keith Garvin on what has been a busy and historic afternoon for our state. A once-in-a-century impeachment trial with Attorney General Ken Paxton on the defense. Prosecutors are trying to prove a long list of criminal allegations, all of them, they say, committed by Paxton to cover up a sordid affair. My co-anchor Daniela Guzman is live in Austin to bring you a view of this case that you won't get anywhere else. Let's get it going with the bench.
In Texas political cases, this is the Super Bowl.
Anybody who says they know what's going to happen, they can't. It's just so unique.
And welcome to a special edition of The Bench, the impeachment of suspended Attorney General Ken Paxton. Thank you so much for joining us. And we have been here all day since really early this morning to really listen in, break down what today meant and really what we're facing and what Ken Paxton is facing moving forward. Let me introduce to you our team of experts, legal and political experts, former Harris County Judge Ed Emmett. Thank you so much for being with us.
Good to be here.
My colleague, KPRC 2 investigator Mario Diaz, and Austin insider, one of the best lobbyists here, is Bill Miller. Thank you for joining us. Matt, what a day it has been. You know, we were revved up this morning getting ready for these opening statements, but it started off a little bit slow with these pretrial hearings, which we'll get to in a moment. But let's just start off fresh and clean. We know everyone's busy at home. They have things to do. They don't keep up with all of the details of these trials. So we just want to tell you why this impeachment trial is important to you, for your family, for the state of Texas, because all eyes also across the United States are watching what Texas does. Who is Ken Paxton, Mario?
Well, Ken Paxton is the Attorney General for this state, top cop, top attorney. And the bottom line here is whether you're in Lake Jackson, you're in Katy, you're in Baytown, or here in Austin, guess what? Ken Paxton is going to be impacting your life every single day in one form or another, because he is, again, the top cop and the top attorney. And sometimes his actions, those cases that he really goes after, they can be forged into legislation in the building behind me here at the state capitol. This is why this trial is important. Also because at the end of the day, Ken Paxton is in charge of transparency for the state of Texas whenever there is a question as to whether or not a state agency, a government, a county should be releasing public information. And because of that, everyone was looking at him to be transparent when it comes to getting his story out there with regards to this impeachment.
We'll take a look at that as well. We're also talking about Ken Paxton's, all the serious charges that he's facing, 16 articles of impeachment. We're also going to talk about the more serious ones that we think would be most damaging to him. We're talking about his mistress. We're also talking about his granite countertop. So we're covering a lot today here on the bench. But let's start off introducing you to who are the players here. Who are the key players? Jason, our producer, is going to bring over some cutouts that we have here.
And these are going to be Ken Paxton,
This is Ken Paxton. This is his wife, Angela Paxton, who, by the way, is also a senator. We'll touch on her in a little bit. And the judge is not too fond of Nate Paul's mugshot here, says it could have been a better one, but this is what we have. Who is Nate Paul?
This is Nate Paul. He's a developer here in Austin, a businessman, a political donor, someone who knows this person here very well. And because of this relationship, this is where you had this storm brew, according to House investigators. And essentially, Paxton, according to the investigation, was doing a lot of favors for Nate Paul, and in return, Nate Paul was doing favors for Ken Paxton, which brings us to charges of conspiracy, abuse of public office, bribery, and unfit to serve.
Right. So basically, that is why Ken Paxton is in trouble, that relationship with Nate Paul and the decisions that they made. And this is where I want to bring in some of our experts and talk about the articles of impeachment. And we're going to bring those up in just a moment. Basically, those are the charges that he is facing. In your opinion, there's 16 of them. Which ones would you say are really the top of the most damaging ones that could really get him in trouble here?
Well, in my case, I think it's definitely bribery, because the general public understands that term. and they understand that that's illegal and that's something you shouldn't do. The questions of conspiracy are a little bit more difficult for people to understand, but and certainly things like disregard of official duty, you know, what does that mean to the average person? That's difficult. But bribery, and it all comes down, as Mario just pointed, are you fit for office or not? And so Article 19, unfit for public office, and abuse of public trust. I mean, this person represents all Texans, and if he's unfit for office, if they come to that conclusion, then he's removed from office.
Mr. Miller, let me ask you about the senators. There are in a criminal or a civil case, you have a jury selection, you have evidence that's brought up, you also have a judge. In this case, it's a little different. Ken Paxton knows his jurors. They're the senators. There are 31 senators, but only 30 will be voting. Tell us a little bit about what you know about these senators, the relationship that they have with Ken Paxton.
Anyone that served in the Senate has a relationship with any fellow senators, both past, present, future, possibly. They know each other, they know their families, they know where they went to school, if they have nicknames, they know all that stuff. That's being a good politician, that's being a smart politician. And what you have here is an attentive, super attentive audience to what's being said, how it's being said, and who's saying it. And right now, there's a lot being said that's contrary to what the other side says, and it's who's going to put it up and who's going to prove it best.
There are senators, I mean, there are Republicans, there are Democrats that will be voting. How much pressure is on these Republican senators who, you know, some of them voted to impeach him, but don't necessarily want to remove him from office because that opens a door to possibly a Democrat?
The bottom line, how much are they doing this?
How much pressure is that?
How much are they looking behind their shoulders, not of the senator that's behind them, but of the voters who might be behind them come re-election time? And we know that some of these senators are going to be facing a re-election here just next year. But you also have to understand that there is political pressure from within their own party.
Right.
The Republican Party does not want to see this internal civil war of, hey, you guys are wrong here, we're right, and the other side doesn't want to have this type of friction. But you have this. It happens from time to time in politics. In the state of Texas, we have never seen it get to this point, and we've never seen 16 articles of impeachment that are being tried in the building behind me against an attorney general.
It's really a historic day. We did have eyes and ears on day one in the impeachment trial here of Ken Paxton. And so after we got through these pretrial motions to be dismissed, we finally got to the opening statements, and we want to show you a little of that in case you missed it. First up was Andrew MURR. He is the chairman of the House Managers, and he spoke. Here's a little bit about what he had to say questioning Ken Paxton's character.
My grandfather, who was privileged to serve the state of Texas for many years, had a favorite quote from Abraham Lincoln. Nearly all men can stand adversity, but if you really want to test a man's character, give him power. Mr. Paxton has been entrusted with great power. Unfortunately, rather than rise to the occasion, he has revealed his true character. And as the overwhelming evidence will show, he is not fit to be the Attorney General for the state of Texas.
That's just a little bit of what he said and how he opened. What is your reaction after hearing Andrew MURR speak?
I think his opening was very clear. It was concise. He only used 20 minutes. He
had an hour.
Had an hour, only used 20. And he left it on, I think, a very high note. I'm going to let the whistleblowers, the witnesses, talk for themselves, and they will prove my case, rather than him trying to prove his case.
What you think
that was
was a good
something that I actually texted you and as well as yourself about this. It was about the witnesses, that this is what this trial is going to come to in terms of what they're going to be focused on the prosecution side. But you have the defense.
Right.
And you have this guy right here.
This is Tony BUZBEE. By the way, these are the players who are inside really running this trial. And these are Houston top attorneys. We're talking about Dick DeGuerin, prosecutor Rusty Hardin. Really big cases that they've been on, and we have our defense attorney.
Tony BUZBEE, Dan Cogdell, and it did not take long today for Tony BUZBEE to take into the proceedings and make his point.
Let's listen into a little bit about of Tony BUZBEE.
I am very happy that these proceedings are being live streamed. I think it is good that Texas voters can hear every bit of evidence or the complete lack of evidence that supports this from both sides. I'm sure that the more than 4.2 million people who voted for Ken Paxton will want to hear why. Will want to hear why 30 people are deciding his fate. And through all this, we must not forget, Ken Paxton, for the last 8 years, has operated the most aggressive, effective litigation apparatus of any Attorney General's office in the country. According to the pundits, Ken Paxton was never supposed to be serving in statewide office. But Ken Paxton is very much serving.
All right, Tony Busbee there. If you recognize his name, he was a defense attorney for
Ken Paxton?
Yes.
And it was very simple.
Deshaun Watson as well.
Oh,
if you
Deshaun
recognize,
Watson
he
and
also
other
ran
cases,
for
right.
mayor of Houston. He made his case, and he made a lot of promises as well.
Yeah, and whether or not he's going to keep those promises, that remains to be seen, but it's going to be an interesting trial for that perspective.
We will have to find out, but when we come back, we're going to take a quick break. We have much more coming up right here on The Bench, live from Austin.
Stand by.
Welcome back to a special edition of The Bench, live here in Austin outside the state capitol. We ended talking about some of the opening statements. We want to go back and talk about some of the senators who will be voting. We said 31 senators, but actually 30 will be voting. The one person who will not be voting is Angela Paxton. Why?
Well, she's the wife, and there's a conflict of interest there. And she was not sworn in today, but she was there.
Yeah.
She walked in with the parade of state senators, part of that jury. She walked right behind Ken Paxton. He was staring straight ahead the entire time, smiling. And when she got to her seat and you started hearing some of the early votes here, she was very much engaged, taking notes. You can tell that she's very active here with the fate of her husband on the background.
Bill, you know both of them very well. Talk to us a little bit about their dynamic. I mean, she is a senator. She has her duty to be here to vote, but she's also a woman. She's also a wife. Hearing some maybe uncomfortable information and details about a mistress. Tell us about that.
Here's how it works. When you're the spouse of someone under duress, and that is what she is, it's very hard on the spouse. And they can run for cover, or they can stand strong, or they can actually be of assistance. She's chosen the route to be of greatest assistance. She's around, she's firm, she's smiling, she's saying this is not going to touch me, and she's showing confidence. Her aura of confidence is noticed by everyone in there because everyone in there looks to her to see how she feels, how she looks, and draw their own conclusions. If you watch her, you see nothing but I'm positive, I love this guy, and we're going to succeed. That's her message. That's their message. They're a team. That's what you're going to see all the way through.
You were in there, Mario. That's what you saw?
Yeah, you did. You didn't see a wife who was upset. You didn't see a wife who was scorned. Internally, she might be feeling something completely different. But externally, she was there and saying, hey, we're in the trenches together here. We're going to fight this, and we're putting up a united front.
Judge, I want to ask you, one highlight of today that we saw was Ken Paxton during opening ceremony, which I think was surprising to many people, was absent. He was not there. He left and did not stay for the opening ceremony. Is that a strategy?
Well, he was there long enough to plead not guilty.
Right.
And then he didn't come back after the break, and there was some confusion. Even Lieutenant Governor Patrick at first said, no, he is supposed to be here, and then he cited Rule 36 and said, oh, no, he was only supposed to be here this morning. So in a way, I think it sends a signal of, I'm not concerned about this. I'm not going to have to sit here and listen to all of it. And we'll see if that works.
Is it a risk, do you think, Bill?
Mr. Miller, is that a little risky, a risky move?
They knew that the witnesses today were people that formerly worked for him, that were going to be critical of his behavior. There's no reason to sit through that. There's no reason to be a kind of microscopic study of duress. It's like, I got better things to do.
Really?
Yeah.
Than to
sit there and want everybody watching and see if you crinkled your eyes or your lips turned down. No, it's remember what this guy is. He's been under a cloud for a long time. He's a cool customer. There's no reason to show anything, exude anything but coolness. And not being there, he showed just that. And I'm cool.
And the defense had no idea what Andrew MURR was going to say. So you take Ken Paxton out of the room, you can't say that man right there, you can't point to him. You can't really single him out.
So it takes power away from the prosecutors to be able to
Exactly.
do that.
Such a good point.
And you have Tony BUZBEE there being able to play the fact that, hey, listen, you had millions of Texans that elected him. He's doing his job. He's working.
Yeah, and that was an interesting argument that Tony BUZBEE made. 4 million people voted for this guy, and how can 30 take him out? Well, if you go back to Watergate, 49 states voted for Richard Nixon, but he still got impeached, and then he chose to resign.
And not to mention, it was over 100 members of the House that got him into this position here today, and those members of the House were also Republicans.
Right. Yeah. The overwhelming vote in the House is still a major sticking point for the defense, because those were a lot of Republicans that voted.
6, right? It was, I think, 6.
No, a lot of Republicans in the House voted to impeach.
Okay.
Including, and I keep going back to all 5 state representatives from his home county who had worked with him all these years and who are representatives under Senator Paxton, Angela.
How difficult it is to turn someone from your own party, a politician from your own party, and vote against you. How difficult is that?
Well, this is what I know. It wasn't an individual decision. Those 5 members caucused and decided we're sticking together on this. We're all in it together. We're not going to go our separate ways. And that was a decision they made among themselves for the reasons that whatever they discussed. But that was a joint decision. Those were not individual decisions.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break for the bench. We will be right back, though. Don't go anywhere. We have much more. We'll be back. Welcome back to a special edition of The Bench. Let's get right to it. The presiding judge for this trial is going to be Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. What do you think has been his tone so far? There's been a lot of talk about, he's a Republican, he knows Ken Paxton well, and it's very strange to see in a trial, your friend, your buddy, people presiding judge over a trial like this. How has he done so far?
He was going to be under the microscope, and I've been very impressed with how he has convened over this trial and presided over this trial. Very quickly, he established rules of evidence. He made sure that the jurors, the senators, understood their duty. He made everyone individually give an oath. It took a while, but he reminded the jurors of the importance of this endeavor.
Okay, Santosh, I'm sorry I have not introduced you. We've been together all day. This is a federal prosecutor. Former federal prosecutor, Santosh Arvid. Thank you so much for joining us. Mr. Bill Miller left, and we're talking about more the legal side of this, so we wanted to bring in Santosh. So in your opinion, you feel that Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick has been thorough and taking his time swearing in all 30 of these senators one at a time.
He's been good. Now, as this trial goes on, he's going to be faced with some complicated legal questions, and he is not a lawyer, but he does have a judge that's working for him. He's got a staff behind him that are giving him advice, and so far he's been keeping things moving and making good rulings.
And there was one ruling today that was pretty dramatic. In the middle of, at the tail end of the opening statements made by the defense, you saw Rusty Hardin jump up, and he had an objection saying, wait, they're not supposed to present their case right now. This is just opening statements. And you saw Dan Patrick, in a matter of seconds, confer with the Judge Myers, and they said,
objection sustained. Right.
Objection sustained. We're going to keep moving. Let's go.
I want to hear your take on opening statements. That's something that you look and analyze, study. We're going to take this quick break that we just have to take, but stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Let's get right to it. Live from Austin here. Today, we discovered Ken Paxton will likely not testify. He really doesn't have to. In your opinion, should he? Should he answer to Texans all these questions?
Well, like in a criminal trial, a defendant is not required to testify, and that's what Judge Patrick ruled today. He could still choose to do so. Some may say that he owes it to the Texas residents to do so, but at the same time, that would subject him to possible bad consequences because he's under federal indictment.
And Santosh, very quickly, the strategy of not having him there today, moving forward as well, perhaps him not showing up. What are your thoughts on that?
I think they're trying to signal that he's above this, that he doesn't need to participate in this. It's not important for him. He's busy doing other things. I think it could backfire because if he's above it, that's part of the theme for the House managers is they could say, this criminal justice system applies to everybody. He should not be above the law.
Right.
Judge, final thoughts on opening statements and how you feel about how today went.
Well, they were fascinating. Like I said, Representative MURR used 20 minutes, 17 minutes, and said, I'm going to let the witnesses speak for themselves and the evidence will be there. Tony BUZBEE was very interesting. He started by attacking the House, which is an interesting strategy. And then he kind of threw out issues that don't have anything to do with this trial, and like contributions. That's not on trial here. So, but he made some promises. I have proof that these charges are not true. The other side says they have proof they are true.
See?
Somebody's not going to win that.
That's right. No, for sure. Final thoughts for you, Santosh. I know tomorrow we're expecting to hear day 2 from more witnesses. We'll see more evidence. What are your final thoughts about today?
We're getting into the meat of the trial. Right. This is all about the credibility of the witnesses and the evidence that's going to be presented. And the trial is going to be won in these next couple weeks of testimony.
Yep, and we will be here. Mario Diaz will be here tomorrow. We have Bryce Newberry, who will be here tonight on KPRC 2 News at 10 o'clock. And you can always get more information, more in-depth coverage on our website, click2houston.com, and on the KPRC 2 Plus. Thank you for joining us on this special edition of The Bench. There's a QR code. You can scan that also to get more information. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you for joining us. Have a good night.